This is Blacklisted News Radio. It's the 20th day of July, 2013. My name is Doug Owen. I am the senior editor of BlacklistedNews.com and your host today. Thank you for tuning in. Lots of stuff to get into. You can be part of it. 512-222-3067. That is the text line. You can shoot us your thoughts, and we have some of those we will be bringing to the table today. Lots of things to get into, plenty of news, and, well, the continuing theme, the Summer of Rage. I think I was correct about this being the Summer of Rage, and thus far, not too disappointing when you look at the Trayvon Martin case and the acquittal of George Zimmerman. There has been a lot of politicizing, and, of course, when it comes right down to it, it's mainly been the President of the United States and the mainstream media that has been stoking the flames that has really enraged people around this country. Protests. I don't know if you saw some of them. The State Department was running some of these protests, but there were plenty of them. Some organic, some not so much. I watched the aftermath. I watched the videos from Occupy, one of the Occupy guys here. I have this video. It's pretty funny, somewhat foul-mouthed, but apparently it's hunting season on black people, according to, his name's Sam Wise. Anyway, they had this deal going on. No, what is it? No justice, no rest, no justice, no rest. I know I'm saying it wrong. It doesn't matter. No peace, no justice. No justice, no peace. Maybe that's what it was. No peace for you. We're going to burn things up and get mad unless you give us what we want, and that is George Zimmerman's head on a plate. And believe you me, I am completely agnostic about the whole thing. I don't care. I've seen a lot of people on the alternative media hoist Mr. Zimmerman on top of the pedestal to this hero status, and I just don't care. I hate to be that guy. And the only reason I bring it up is because it shows you the way that the media can use their power to create a mass hypnosis and to put people into a violent, angry state where they feel wronged, and so much so that they go out and riot, which is pretty impressive. I mean, you have to admit that. I mean, the power that they hold in their hot little hands is it's nothing less than awing. I mean, here's a little bit of what happened here. And I stayed up till, I don't know, probably 2 o'clock watching the live Ustream video. Here's just a little taste.
Because that's the country we live in now, where murder isn't a crime if you're a white man. It's fucked up and bullshit.
He's white, by the way. He's a little white Jewish guy.
Ground laws are written by the American Legislative Exchange Council, which allows corporations to collaborate directly with senators in writing legislation, and through ALEC, they have passed some of the most heinous and destructive legislation in the country. Now, I've got to be completely honest. If you look into ALEC, it's this bill mill. They create all of these bills like the Ag-Gag bill. They've come up with so many of these for multinational corporations, other business interests, and they've been able to do a lot in a very short amount of time. They're trying to keep you away from, being able to affect the bottom dollar, the profit margin of their sponsors. So this guy's speaking a lot of truth. He's pretty aware of what's going on. I have to give him that. But he's been propagandized like many, and he believes that it's the white man that's holding everybody else down. As a white man, I just want to let you know that I haven't found any of the perks, the benefits. Nobody's been just dumping money in my lap. I haven't found that I have a better success record with not getting arrested over maybe a black male. I haven't seen all of these benefits, but apparently they're there, and I should just shut up and enjoy the wonders of being white. Snow White, as I am. I'm not quite Snow White, but I could be. Not as white as Bradley Manning, who's been locked up in a cage for
years.
Off, because that's the country we live in now, where murder isn't a crime if you're a white man.
So literally, if you're a white man, you can kill people, according to Sam Wise, the occupier here in Chicago. Pretty silly, right? But there were some beautiful moments where you could see that people came together and they were looking beyond Trayvon Martin. There were a few voices in the crowd that seemed to have a semblance of reason and understood the grander issues at play. Here's a moment. Well, I say that. Maybe I didn't.
Who killed Trayvon Martin? The whole damn system! Who killed Trayvon Martin?
Now, let's be honest about it. I mean, there's a lot of things that would probably have killed Trayvon Martin, but the whole damn system, I don't know. These are chants, though. You can't expect a whole lot of analysis and truth out of, anti-white chants. I think Al Gore's back there. You hear him?
It's like we're going to the horse.
Yes, the horse. Anyway, yeah, I'm not going to play it all. I should have clipped it up a little bit better, but they asked for a moment of silence, and actually these protesters, these somewhat unruly protesters that don't want the man telling them what to do, as soon as one person hops up and decides to be the leader and tells them all to shut up, they all do it. So, yeah, I don't know what else really to say about it. I had some other clips, but I find that if I start clipping things on Sunday and Monday and Tuesday for this Saturday show, it just doesn't bode that well, because everybody's already heard this and they've already pretty much come to the conclusion that they don't want to hear any more about it. We're all tired of being berated by the tragedy pimps and the mainstream media on this. I think it's pretty telling and interesting to see how the whole image of the United States is changing rapidly. I mean, this is never... it would never have been thought of a few years ago. Former President and Commander-in-Chief of America, he says America is no longer a democracy. This came out of Der Spiegel, and Washington's blog noted this, quote, former U.S. President Jimmy Carter, in the wake of the NSA spying scandal, criticized the American political system, saying, quote, America has no functional democracy anymore, Carter said Tuesday in a meeting of the Atlantic Bridge in Atlanta. So there you go. So you got Jimmy Carter, you got Barack Obama, you got all these presidents weighing in on different topics, from Trayvon Martin to the massive amounts of spying. Now, the funny thing about Jimmy Carter coming out and saying that he's offended and that we don't have any democracy left in this country is that the USS Jimmy Carter. Are you familiar? If you're not, they actually named a submarine after Mr. Jimmy Carter. And almost all presidents get some kind of building or vessel, a vessel that is made for them or after them. Well, the USS Jimmy Carter is a NSA submarine, and it's purpose-built to tap undersea fiber optic cables. Now, if you don't see the irony in that, if that doesn't give you a little bit of a chuckle, a little snortle, then I don't know what will, because this is the guy that's supposed to be this vocal advocate of whistleblowers and kind of running contrary. His thoughts and ideas run contrary to the most of the people in government. And so he's supposed to be the good guy. At least he's painted that way. So former President Jimmy Carter announced support for NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden this week, saying that his uncovering of the agency's massive surveillance programs had proven, quote, unquote, beneficial. Speaking at a closed-door event in Atlanta, covered by German newspaper Der Spiegel, Carter also criticized the NSA's domestic spying as damaging to the core of the nation's principles. Damaging to the core. Quote, America does not have a functioning democracy at this point in time, Carter said, according to the translation. by Inquisitor. Odd that we have to hear Jimmy Carter speaking in English, translated to German, then retranslated to English to find out that he doesn't believe that you and I live in the United States of America any longer. This is no longer a functioning democracy. Now, if we had a functioning democracy, I think that it would probably be, number one, illegal to vote, illegal to protest. If we could change the direction of the state with our ballots, it probably would not, they would not allow the plebeians, people like you and I out there, to participate in the system. So just kind of one of those gotcha, funny things, because Jimmy Carter has his own sub. It's not that he owns it, but it's named after him. That is a wire splicer. It's a cable tapper. Yeah, exactly. Well, so many things have been kind of swept under the rug with the ongoing focus on non-news, and I think we've demonstrated that. I think most of you at this point listening 10, 17, 20 minutes into this podcast probably don't really care about the Trayvon Martin outcome, because guess what? There are black people. Oh, yes, I hate to say this. There are black people that kill white people because they are white. Yes, it happens. But you're never going to see a black man, at least not in the next decade, on trial for hate crimes. It's just not going to happen. It's just like you're not going to see a white man on trial at The Hague for genocidal war crimes. It's just not going to happen. Okay, they go after the black people and they go after the white people. It depends on where you're at. But that's how this system works. That's how they keep us in this perpetual servitude. All right, so we had the anniversary of the assassination of Dr. David Kelly. Many of you who have just started listening to somewhat, I don't know if I should say enlightened podcasts, but information and commentary that is outside of the media, mainstream media complex, may not know of David Kelly. He was a British scientist and an expert on biological warfare. He was employed by the British Ministry of Defense and formerly a United Nations weapon inspector in Iraq. He went to Iraq and he saw some interesting things. He brought those tales back to the United States, or well, back to his respective country here, and the information that he had was not something that anyone wanted to hear in the halls of government. He came to public attention in 2003 when an unauthorized discussion he had off the record with BBC journalist Andrew Gilligan, Spook, about the British government's dossier on weapons of mass destruction in Iraq was cited by Gilligan as and led to a major controversy. Kelly's name became known as to the media as Gilligan's source, and he was called to appear on the 15th of July before the Parliamentary Foreign Affairs Select Committee investigating the issues that had been reported. Kelly was questioned aggressively about his actions. He was found just 2 days later dead. And the circumstances surrounding his death are more than odd and almost an overt assassination. But there is an inquest campaign, and almost at this point, the government has pretty much acquiesced and said, yeah, somebody probably killed him. Because every piece of evidence that has come forward highlights this and points to this, and then it only takes a person with a small amount of logic and common sense to come to the conclusions that he was assassinated, and who would have wanted him dead, who benefited from this assassination. So this came out of the inquest campaign, considering that we are 10 years now, and that's wild to me. I mean, we're going on 10 years, and I remember when this man was killed. I remember this clear as day. I remember him coming out and speaking about the fact that there were no weapons of mass destruction, that the Brits and the Americans had pretty much concocted and fabricated almost everything that they were using as justification to lead us into now the $6 trillion war. All right, so Atheo News had this piece. I want to give proper credit to them. The campaign to reopen the inquest into the death of Dr. David Kelly is holding a silent, gagged protest outside the Royal Courts of Justice, London, on Thursday. Might not have heard about that. Might not have even heard about that in the alternative media because of all of the other noise in the background. To mark the anniversary, the 10th anniversary of Dr. Kelly's death, and to demand the reopening of his inquest, campaigners demand Dr. Kelly's inquest as his right under British law to examine all evidence, including the fresh evidence. The coroner speaks for the dead to protect the living. Campaigners demand due process of British law and transparency for the clear establishment of truth and justice. All single unexplained deaths require an inquest under British law. That's what it was. Hey, he's dead. What happened? Nothing. Pretty relatively young guy, good health, just dies after going and speaking some of the most powerful truth to a room full of liars everywhere. And you would wonder why he passed. Why would this guy just happen to die right after going in front of all of these powerful, influential people in Parliament, in the world? And let's not forget all of the private contractors that have made literally trillions of dollars off of this war. I mean, find me people that wanted, besides his family and other colleagues, that wanted Dr. David Kelly to remain alive. I mean, that's harder. You can find more people easily that wanted him dead, considering all single unexplained deaths should have been and should be looked into, and his should have been, but that's not what happened. Dr. David Kelly's unexplained death, according to many centuries of British law, should have been examined in a proper coronial inquest with the option of a jury, the power of subpoena, testimony given under oath with cross-examination and a requirement to establish suicide beyond a reasonable doubt. Instead, Section 17A of the Coroners Act of 1988 was quickly invoked, which is used to cover multiple deaths, as with train disasters, probably uniquely for Dr. Kelly's single unexplained death. The result was the Hunton inquiry, engaged only to look into the circumstances surrounding his death, neither overseen by a coroner nor with the proper powers of an inquest. And here's the tell. Here's the smoking gun. It's that they would have done this for any Joe Schmo. This is standard operating procedure when people die mysteriously. This isn't something that you would do because he was, somewhat famous or well-known or working for government. This is something that you would do just for the average person that in the private sector that has no ties to government, that wasn't working on any special projects, looking into these claims that were used as complete lies to facilitate and to get funding and to help perpetuate these lies that brought us into the Iraq War. The lapdog, Tony Blair, has now all but admitted that just about all of the evidence that was used to gain consensus to go into Iraq in 2003 was fabricated. It was based upon lies, and, well, none of those liars are in jail. And 10 years on, Dr. David Kelly, his death is a reminder of the shadow government and how it operates. And unfortunately, I don't see a new inquest. And if I did entertain the idea that they would have one, which I don't think that they would, but if I did, and I can say, well, maybe one day, 50 years from now, somebody's going to sit down and say, hey, we should have a reinvestigation what would come of it? What would they find? Who would they pick to put into this investigation? It would be like having a new investigation into the events of 9/11. Not that I don't believe that maybe we should have one, but the truth of the matter is that at this point, it's almost moot unless somebody goes to jail, unless we have somebody that is actually charged. And I don't see that happening. I mean, 10 years to destroy evidence is quite a while. It's going to be hard to do anything at this point to find any kind of accountability. So with 9/11, there's plenty of evidence that points to specific individuals that are still alive that should be questioned and potentially jailed. Donald Rumsfeld and Dick Cheney are two that come to mind. And I don't think that if you had the same people that put together the original inquest, the original 9/11 oversight committee, I don't think you would have a different outcome. And so to continue to ask government to do the same thing over and over again is quite insane. But people do it. They want justice. And I want justice as well. I don't expect government to really give it to me. I don't expect government to bring me the truth in light of all of the lies that are being propagated, because most of those are coming from government. We're going to talk about how they can now propagandize you. But before that, let's get into this big trial. Lots of trials that are happening that you're hearing nothing about, one of which is Chris Hedges versus Obama, challenging the NDAA, the National Defense Reauthorization Act, that allows the U.S. military to round up people, and to strip them of their citizenship and to send them off to some hellhole in a third world country to torture, rape, violate, whatever the government does with people. And you can look at the ones in the prison. They're fine examples. You can look at the ones at Guantanamo Bay. And those are other sad examples of what the government will do to people that are incarcerated. Kevin Barrett brought this back up. 9/11 could be insurance fraud as trial of conspiring duo begins in New York. Now, for all of you that haven't extensively looked into the events of 9/11, that's okay. There's a lot of information there. There's a lot of documentaries, and there's a lot of stuff that you kind of have to wade through to try to understand exactly what it is that happened. And so I've had years upon years, many of you as well listening to this podcast have, to kind of look at the best evidence, the most compelling, and one of which is the fact that Larry Silverstein himself decided that with the New York Fire Department's blessing to pull Building 7. And he said as much. We made that decision. We made the decision. Larry said to pull the building. And you can watch the PBS documentary where he says this. There's a lot of people, a lot of the propagandists out there that said, oh, well, he meant something else. He didn't really mean that. He meant pull the people from the building. So blah, 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 blah. I mean, there's so many apologists for this comment. But it's very straightforward, and it seems very reasonable. Okay, the guy owns the building, or at least has a lease on the building. Why he got to make the decision and why the fire department asked him if it was okay to do this and how all of this came about, that makes almost no sense. Okay, the fire department doesn't just go and, oh, hold on, let me go to our C4 truck over here and we'll just load this building up with explosives and we'll blow it down for the safety of everyone. It just doesn't usually happen like that. Actually, it never happens like that. Well, anyway, insult to injury, Mr. Silverstein wants more money, more and more and more. This is a trial that's not getting the attention of pretty much anyone. So Kevin Barrett had a pretty interesting piece on this. We published it at blacklistednews.com. Is this the world's worst case of insurance fraud ever? ? That's what many are saying as the world's biggest real estate swindler and the world's most corrupt judge meet in Manhattan courtroom. They did this on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. At issue, billions of dollars in loot from the demolition of the World Trade Center complex on September 11, 2001. World Trade Center owner Larry Silverstein, who confessed on national television to, quote-unquote, pulling the World Trade Center building number 7, will appear in court in the courtroom of Judge Alvin Hellerstein at 500 Pearl Street in New York City. The non-jury trial, which is expected to last. Sorry for the laugh there, but why would you want a jury of your peers? And how can you find a bunch of billionaires to actually be Larry Silverstein's peers? They're going to decide whether or not Silverstein is entitled to $3.5 billion from the airlines and airport-related companies, in addition to the $4.9 billion he's already received for his quote-unquote losses on September 11th. Poor Larry. He lost a building that he blew up himself, but he got $3.5 billion. I bet you he's crying all the way to the bank. I mean, that's the best worst case scenario for any investor ever. Well, I just happened to buy all this really, really elaborate insurance that specifically prevents or protects against terrorism, pays out for terrorism. I mean, you have a better chance on a roulette wheel of hitting the 00. Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. But let's just pretend for a moment Larry had nothing to do with anything. This guy has no remorse whatsoever, and so much as to now be blaming the airlines for these buildings coming down, for their failure. Now, let's think about this for a moment. He's already been paid, number one. And now, number two, he believes that it was somehow the airplane or the airports or other airline companies' fault that the building was demolished. Though he said he pulled the building, that he made that decision. So even if all of the other nefarious aspects and shenanigans that happened around 9/11, even if you negate all of that, the fact that he was the one that made the decision to drop these buildings should, I think, disqualify him from getting billions and billions of dollars more from the companies here that'll pass that on to the frequent flyers. There's 7 of them. But anyway, the question on everyone's mind is, why is Silverstein claiming that the airlines destroyed his buildings when he has already confessed, and I just mentioned this, to demolishing at least one of them himself? In the 2002 PBS documentary, quote-unquote, America Rebuilds, Silverstein admitted to complicity in the controlled demolition of World Trade Center 7, a 47-story skyscraper that dropped into its own footprint, its own basement. It was packed up there nicely in 6.5 seconds. The mysterious destruction of Building 7 has become the Rosetta Stone of 9/11. Virtually all independent experts who have studied the case, including thousands of architects and engineers, agree that the government's explanation that a few small office fires somehow destroyed World Trade Center 7 is a non-starter. Okay, Building 7, these experts say, was obviously taken down by controlled demolition. And then he goes on and on into some of the evidence here, and you can check it. It's very, very interesting, and I think it's worth rereading if you're not familiar with some of the specifics, some of the arguments by the independent engineers and architects that have looked into this, that have more questions than answers, so much so that it bothers them at night. And these people, very well-paid professionals, have put their own credibility on the line just to speak truth to power, just to speak out against these obvious lies that many just don't want to talk about. It's not that your architect that's building your home or your business office doesn't want to look at 9/11 or doesn't want to speak the truth out. They just are probably not that interested. Not that interested. They're probably okay with what they've heard on television, the government's official story. So let's see. we got 9/11 out of the way. Larry Silverstein's a scumbag, and I should follow up and see. Let's just go to let's go to some of the latest on that. Let's see. Silverstein. I don't know if he won the money or if he didn't. If he won the money, I'm going to be really upset, and we'll see how far this podcast goes beyond that. Larry Silverstein. God, he's an ugly bastard. Ugh. Rich, ugly bastard. World Trade Center owner trying to sue airlines over billions of dollars. All right, yay. Larry didn't get paid. This came out yesterday. The owners of the World Trade Center can't demand billions of dollars more in insurance money for the destruction caused by the September 11th attacks. A federal judge decided Thursday. Judge Alvin Hellerstein ruled after hearing testimony by economic experts for the Trade Center owners and for the airlines linked to the planes that were hijacked in the attacks. The non-jury trial was held to decide whether the owners could collect more than the $5 billion they had already received. In a ruling against developer Larry Silverstein and World Trade Center Properties, the judge cited the laws that bar, quote, windfalls and double recovery on the same loss. Thank you, Mr. Hellerstein. So Larry goes home. Only a billionaire, not a multi-billionaire. He has lost a little of the extra cash that he was hoping to collect there from the airlines that have already been screwed. I mean, the airlines are... I don't have a lot of sympathy for these companies because they have acquiesced to the TSA. They've acquiesced to just about everything that's been thrown at them. And, well, it's because they've been bailed out several times, I think. And you know, when you're in a business that depends on other people to give you business, including government money, it's kind of hard to be that vocal, isn't it? It's really hard to have a hard-line stance against something if you're just going to have to cower back and beg for money in the few weeks coming up to whatever the next numbers cycle is. We're down again. Can we borrow some money, government? It's been a while since the airlines have been bailed out, but not nearly as long as it should have been. And if it's not the airlines, it's Amtrak, it's some other corporate entity. And surprisingly enough, the U.S. government isn't bailing out Detroit. We'll get there, but I first want to talk about a country that relies on a lot of money from, almost all of its money from outside givers, donators, and that is Israel. We have a few articles here about Israel. They're always, starting things. They're always stirring the pot, and they really are the tack in the world's ass when it comes to the creation of peace and prosperity in the region, for many, many reasons, and I could just drone on about that for hours. But anyway, they've got some of their own domestic issues. There's a day of uprisings that happened against Israel's sweeping ethnic cleansing plan. Now, most people would call this genocide, but we'll just call it ethnic cleansing because that sounds nicer, I guess. That's what Common Dreams thought here, writing the piece. A national day of protests and strikes swept Israel and occupied Palestine Monday as demonstrators filled the streets to voice their opposition to Israel's P-R-A-W-E-R, ethnic cleansing plan that would forcibly evict and displace up to 70,000 indigenous Palestinian Bedouins from their region in southern Israel. The streets protests spread through major Palestine cities and towns Monday, including Ramallah, Gaza City, Hebron, and Nablus. A 700-strong protest in the southern Israeli city of Beersheba. I call it Beersheba. It's Beersheba. Under the banner of the plan that will not pass, blocked a major thoroughfare and was shut down by police, who arrested at least 14 people. So, this really does highlight these amazingly crazy and, let's be honest, racist plans. This is Racism in Politics in Action 101. Okay, they just rounded up 30,000 what they considered to be ne'er-do-wells, blacks, and shoved them out of the country. They stripped them of their Israeli citizenship. And this is going on and on and on, and they're just finding, tens of thousands of other people and Palestinians and the like that 70,000 people, we're just going to round them up and kick them to the curb. Now, I don't think they're going to be giving them their tax money back. Sorry, bud. Sorry, we're kicking you out of here and stripping your citizenship, but all that money you paid us last year in taxes, we're going to keep that. Not that, it would be better if they sent them on their way with a check. Here's your check for the last 5 years worth of property taxes on your home. I don't know if these people are property owners, but 70,000 of them, it just seems pretty radical. I mean, if we had the Border Patrol or anybody in this country decide to round up 70,000 of any group, it would be a huge, not national, but global story. And this is, to an extent, the United States, of course, bootlicking and positioning and wailing at the wall, has said nothing, but Europe has made a pretty tough position for the U.S. They've made a pretty strong stance against Israel in this in this go. EU cracks down on West Bank settlements. No aid for Israel without guarantee it won't go to disputed territory. Dun 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 dun. Really? You're going to hold back funding from Israel for any reason whatsoever? Even genocide? That surprises me. It really did. And, of course, scant mention on your cable news networks, almost no mention in the papers, although I have to give it up to the Austin American-Statesman. This was in the back page. I did happen to catch a little 2-paragraph note in the back of the national news section. This out of the Independent. Israeli officials reacted with outrage. You can imagine, because they don't have much of an economy themselves, they rely on extorting others, and they're just really beggars and money changers when it comes to the way they collect money on a national level. And, there's plenty of other nations that do that don't have the ability to fend for themselves without using others to prop themselves up. And but Israel's probably the biggest thorn in the side of the American people, because not only do they take your money, but they create tension and the justification for wars in the Middle East that we've already aforementioned, $6 trillion in Iraq and counting. And if we allowed people like Mr. Netanyahu to steer our foreign policy, not to say that he doesn't, because he kind of does, but if he had the full control, he didn't have any, he was unbridled, he was unhedged, he would just blow Iran to pieces. It would be full scale war all day, every day. It would be a never ending war for God in his mind. Anyway, the notice prohibits 28 EU states from providing any grants, prizes, and financial instruments funded by the EU that benefits anyone in the settlements. The settlements, effectively villages and towns, are Jewish communities built on what is internationally regarded as Palestinian land. The settlements are considered illegal under international law. They're illegal under international law. Now, this brings us to Henry Kissinger. The Sleuth Journal had a great piece about it. Kissinger's definition of terrorism might surprise you. So who are the terrorists? If you live in this country, you might think it's white boy Al-Qaeda. It could be Christian right-wing anti-abortion activists. It could be the Muslim community as a whole. You might even have a more skewed vision of what terrorism is in this country. Maybe you think it's the white people terrorizing the black people, whatever it may be. Henry Kissinger's definition is an odd one, and I'm going to play this clip, and we'll just let old Hank speak for himself here. It's pretty short, but
Middle East.
here we go.
We live in a different world.
Yes, we
the
do.
nations do not represent historic entities in the same sense the European nations did. Turkey, of course, does, and Iran, in a considerable extent, does. But in the region in between, the borders were drawn by the victors of World War I on the basis, largely, of what would facilitate their influence. So therefore, the identities of these countries and of their borders can be challenged more easily. What we in America call terrorists are really groups of people that reject the international system. And they are trying to regroup it by radical Islamic fundamentalists.
Okay, so he's saying, well, this is for the Islamic radical fundamentalists, but it's anybody that opposes international law. International law means that we listen to the EU, we listen to these groups, and there's a consensus that is reached by the international power players that be. So, Israel, not playing by international law. According to Kissinger's definition, they themselves are the terrorists. Now, don't think for a moment that he hasn't thrown all of the people from the Middle East and you, my friends out there, that believe that, hey, the United Nations doesn't have the ability nor the right to speak for me and my family. My family and I, rather. Yeah, you out there are the terrorists in his mind, the people out there that do not want the IMF and the World Trade Organization putting their fingers into your pockets. You are the terrorist in Henry Kissinger's mind. Bless you. So, I find it odd. Not really, but I find it comical. I think it's definitely very Hippocratic for these entities like Israel to continue to bash others for not being part of the international community, and people like Henry Kissinger to, of course, rail against Middle Easterners that want theocracy, that want a government that is run by whether it's Sharia law or other Islamic hardliner law, all the variations thereof that I am not an expert in. They themselves are the terrorist according to Mr. Kissinger. And I kind of agree in certain aspects. I don't think that, for countries that go against the Magna Carta, that round up their own citizens and strip them of citizenship. These are things that are outside of the norm of international law. They're flying by the seat of their pants when they do these things, and Israel just believes that they have the right. And we've allowed them to do this over and over again. And I say that because we continue to give them money. They would not do what they do. They did not have the money to do it. Anyway, we spend a lot of money. We waste a lot of it, tons of it. I've been overwhelmed and inundated with the amount of news related to quote-unquote Big Brother, and almost to the point where I realize that because I don't care anymore about this debate, that I'm burnt out on it, that many others that are casual observers probably are as well. We've had this huge debate. Is it okay for the government to spy on you, to collect your data or metadata? Is it okay for them to do this? And a lot of people believe it absolutely is. Now, they are not the majority of people in this country, not by a long shot. Interestingly enough, and we'll probably have Michael Vale on this week to talk about his latest and recent discoveries about the PRISM project, but the database itself, PRISM, was being used and is currently being used by NATO. So NATO-aligned countries have access to the PRISM system. Now, when you look at the documentation, you have to ask yourself, well, is there two PRISM systems? Or do we have two separate databases? Because all of these NATO countries are the ones that are decrying. Oh, they're watching us. Oh, the mean, evil United States. And they are using this for their own domestic propaganda. They are doing this to allow themselves a lot of leniency and in a way to obfuscate from the obvious domestic problems that they have, currently. Mostly economic. It's great to blame everything that you can on, or to keep the conversation about the evil Americans while at the same time negating real domestic issues and the cries from their own citizenry for transparency. So we could talk more and more about it. I mean, it's getting worse and worse. I mean, Device brought this out to my attention. Next school ID could be your eyes. We're well on our way here. Just a matter of time before this information ends up in Big Brother's hands. Don't be surprised when registering for class this fall. If you're asked to scan your eyeballs, this according to Device, as I mentioned, it's just your awesome new school ID being created. Don't jump into this with any regrets. It's okay. Like something out of a Philip K. Dick novel, iris scanners are becoming commonplace. Learning institutions ranging from universities right down to elementary schools are adopting the ID technology for use by facility and students alike. In South Carolina, Winthrop University has admitted an entire freshman class whose IDs include iris scan data. In the next year or two, students there will likely be able to check out library books, interdiscipline specific labs, and even buy textbooks and swag from the university bookstore with a blink of their eye. They've already rolled this out in Leon, Mexico, where just about everything from transportation to buying groceries requires a retinal scan. And this isn't something that you have to actually conform to. You don't actually have to give your permission and stick your eyeball close to some eyeball reading device. They can read this with retinal scanners, and this is 2-year-old technology, probably older than that, because they rolled this out a few years ago in Mexico just to test this on a whole city. And Nuevo Leon is a pretty big city. But they can actually read your eyeball up to 5 to 10 feet away. So when you're going through the line where the cash register should be at your local grocery store, all you got to do is look up at Big Brother, and they're taking a picture of your eye, and before you know it, you've paid. You've entered the cashless society control grid, and some people are loving it. They are loving this. If you can go to McDonald's and get your breakfast biscuit with your eyeball, why not? Why not? Don't have to remember your wallet. Less likely to have people mug you because there's nothing to take unless they want to cut your eyeball out. Yeah, that's the other end of it. Would you rather just give them your cash, or would you rather somebody cut your finger off to be able to use that to open up your laptop? And I imagine that's going to happen more and more. But my imagination is quite wild. I have a wild imagination of what could be done with the technology that we have today. And it's just because I have a pretty low opinion of most of the people in government, and I know what they want to do with said information. And I've already seen for the last well over 10 years where we're going and where we've come to. There's always going to be those people that are kicking and screaming to stay in the past, and I might be one of those Luddites that would like to go back to the simpler times that we had, but you're going to have to figure out how to live in this new modern society. I hear about it all the time, people prepping, the preppers, and There's nothing wrong with prepping yourself and your family, but the idea that you can opt out of the world is pretty unreasonable right now, unless you just want to go somewhere where there's nothing. Yeah, you can find places where there are no human beings and technology is very, very lacking. There are those places on planet Earth. And I'm not saying that you should get into it. A lot of people hear me, saying, well, it's going to be harder and harder to get away from this. That's why we have to change it. My point is that you can't run from it. You have to run towards it, and you have to chop off its head. You have to attack it at the head. You cannot just say, well, I'm just going to take my storable food and hide in a hole until all of this goes away, because it's not going away. It's not going to change unless people that are caring, intelligent, and intellectual like yourselves and myself say no more. And I don't know if that's going to happen, but we have to at least first, before we can really mount a defense or to mount an offense, you have to understand what it is that we're looking at and why so many people love this idea, how it's going to be used. So elsewhere, elementary schools are boarding kids with iris scanners. The scanners will not provide students confirmation. The scanners will not only provide students confirmation that they're on the right bus, but will send photographic messages to their parents. These messages will inform the parents whether their child boarded the bus and where they got off. Not only will parents know precisely when and where to pick up their kid, but ditching school to play video games at a buddy's house will become a whole lot harder. Now, this is going to give you a false sense of security. That's what it's intended to do. You feel good. Oh, I got that email. Oh, I got that text message. Johnny's on the bus. That's great. But, if the technology fails and for whatever reason you didn't get your update, you feel panicked. You feel scared. Why didn't I get the text message? I don't know. Before you know it, because you become so accustomed to having this daily reminder of your child getting onto the bus or making it to school that you'll probably freak out if it doesn't happen. How many times does technology fail us? How reliant should we be on technology? I see it every once in a while. You'll go to a store, and for whatever reason, their credit card reading machine is out. And every once in a while, they'll whip out the big machine with the triple carbon copy, and they'll put your card on there, just like in the 1980s, and they give it the run back and forth. Then they give you the copy of the card. They're like, hey, there you go. And it just amazes me that people can still do that. Wow, you can still run those credit cards manually by entering numbers and not just the digital information. They can do it, though they don't want to, because you don't have that immediate confirmation the money is there. But, that's how credit cards used to work when I was a young child. To date myself, I'm 35 now, so 25 years ago, that was pretty commonplace. But it's all about big data. It's all about knowing everything about everything, so we can have total safety and total awareness, and we can fully immerse ourselves into total surveillance. That's what a lot of people are cheering on, and we're getting more comfortable with the idea that our television isn't just something that we watch to entertain ourselves. It's something that is watching us to make sure that the infotainment is the correct infotainment based on your age, based on your height, based on whether or not you're there. The motion sensors, biosensors are going into video games, PlayStation, Nintendo, Xbox, all of these things, from the Kinect, voice recognition to biometric recognition, are being integrated into all of the things that your kids want to play with. And so, I try to look at the positive side. I keep trying to find that. Okay, where is this going to end up taking us to, and what happens? Where are we going to be? Where's society going to be? And boy, that kind of scares you, doesn't it? I mean, it scares you to think, wow, we're just going to be cyborgs here in the next few years. We're going to have things being implanted in us. And I've already got a few funny articles this week, and I think that they're somewhat entertaining about people implanting microchips in their minds to, oh, well, here's one. Here's one before we get to that. Google plans on implanting chip in your brain. It's pretty straightforward, isn't it? Scott Huffman, Google's engineering director, says the company's intention is to transform the ways people interact with Google. That means having conversations similar to those you would have with humans. No longer will we have to go to settings to recalibrate our devices. We will simply order them to make the desired changes, and those devices will not be in our pockets, but around us in every room. Quote, if you look back 10 years ago, there was a computer on a desk, and today there's a computer in my pocket, and it still has a screen and a keyboard, says Huffman. But fast forward a bit, I think there's going to be a device in the ceiling with microphones, and it will be in my glasses or my wristwatch or on my shirt, and like Google Glass, it won't have a keyboard. You just say, okay, Google, blah, 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 and you will get what you want. Where will it end? Gomes agrees that a chip embedded in the brain is far from a sci-fi fantasy. They already have them. Quote, already people are beginning to experiment with handicapped people for maneuvering their wheelchairs, he says. They are getting a few senses of direction with the wheelchair, but getting from their actual words is a long way off. We have to do this in the brain. A lot better to make the interaction possible. We have impatience for that to happen, but the pieces of technology have to develop. Yeah. And, I mean, it's freaking amazing the stuff that they're doing with people that are paraplegics, others that have been blown up in the war, people that are missing limbs, people that are able to have an semblance of life again. Just this week, they rolled out the new what do they call it? It's a bioionic eyeball. They actually put a sensor, and they tap the optical nerve, and you wear these glasses, and it helps you outline the surroundings so that blind people can see. It reminds me very much of Geordi on Star Trek Next Generation, who had the hair clip across his eyes. But it was real high tech. He couldn't see the way that we saw, but he saw all of this information. He saw all of these outlines, so he saw the world in a very different way. I mean, we're almost there. We are there, and we probably are past that point. It just hasn't been rolled out, and it hasn't hit assembly lines for you to purchase yet. But, I mean, we're already there. Your ID at school. I mean, there's been some great cases. There was a young lady down in San Antonio, Texas. Their school district there was mandating RFID tags for the kids, and they were using that to enroll them and to make sure that they could track them on campus. You know, and the whole idea is that we are keeping your children safe. It's our responsibility to keep them safe, and this is how we're going to do it. A lot of people said, wow, that's great. How progressive of you. How awesome of you to do that for us. Then some people said, whoa, that is too much. One young girl decided to say no, and that brought a huge stop to this plan. It was a pilot program. They were doing it at several schools, and I forget the school district. It's not the San Antonio School District. It has another name, but the school district itself decided to scrap the pilot program. But I try to look at everything from both sides, from the parent side, from the student side, and from the administrator side. There is a certain reasonable expectation that these institutions, these schools, are able to keep track of your children and keep them on campus. They get sued all the time by parents saying, well, you couldn't keep my children safe. Ultimately, it's your responsibility. I dropped them off with you, school district. I dropped them off with you. You were supposed to be protecting my children. Why have you failed in this? Let me sue you for millions of dollars because my child skipped school and whatever, insert whatever scenario you want, but somehow the child was harmed, hurt, missing. They want money. They want money. They want accountability. They want a recourse for this. And so the school district says, well, let's just chip your children. We'll chip them. We'll know where they're at. And then, we can blame technology rather than administrators, rather than individuals. I mean, that's where a lot of this is going. I mean, not to say that it's all bad. I mean, we are seeing public outcries against things, technology, specifically in our food, which is great. But just another example to kind of keep it here. This came out of Activist Post, I think. Literal smart dust opens brain-computer pathway to spy on your brain. And I only say that, and I'll chastise Activist Post a little bit for this, because it's kind of lame. They put out good information, but when they put their source links, they always say, no matter what, that they are the source. Activist Post. She's writing for Activist Post. You have to go all the way to the bottom of the article to realize that it's not from the Activist Post. It's from somewhere else, and that they have reprinted this from another website. I aggregate tons of news, but I try to make it very straightforward so that you know where it came from. That's why the source is not Blacklisted News unless I, myself, or one of our writers wrote the piece. And that just, that way you give proper credit. You don't want to sit here and say, hey, I found this on Activist Post, and it's really from Natural Society. It's really from the Waking Times. It's really from the Economic Collapse blog. And then people get upset with me, and they send me these emails. You're not giving me proper credit. You guys are stealing. It's not that I'm stealing. I just don't know. I have to be a freaking investigative journalist. I have to be a sleuth just to figure out where the article that I'm looking at came from. So my cordial advice to those out there that have websites in the alternative media, please just tell people where it's coming from. They're already on your website. They've already clicked it. They'll probably share it. Just, stop the insanity. We need to know who wrote the article. That way I can properly say it on the podcast. All right. I've ground my gears now. It's nice and smooth like a wheel. Literal smart dust opens brain-computer pathway to spy on your brain. Yeah, some might have heard about smart dust, nanoparticulates that can be employed as sensor networks for a range of security and environmental applications. Now, however, literal smart dust for the brain is being proposed as the next step towards establishing a brain-computer interface. I know you guys are excited about this. It's not in the Coke. Stop snorting it. The system is officially called neural dust and works to monitor the brain from the inside. Inventors are attempting to overcome the hurdle of how to best implant sensors that can remain over the course of one's life. Researchers at Berkeley Engineering believe that they have found a novel way to achieve this. Quote, this paper explores the fundamental system design trade-offs and ultimate size, power, and bandwidth scaling limits of neural recording systems. A network of tiny implantable sensors could function like an MRI inside the brain, recording data on nearby neurons and transmitting them back. The smart dust, or neural dust, particulates would all contain an extremely small CMOS sensor capable of measuring electrical activity in nearby neurons. The researchers envision a piezoelectric material backing the CMOS capable of generating electrical signals from ultrasound waves. The process would also work in reverse, allowing the dust to beam data back via high-frequency sound waves. The neural dust would also be coated with polymer. Neat, right? We are here. We are here. Go ahead and sprinkle some of that mind dust in your brain there, buddy. Oh, look at that. You're thinking about my wife naked. Are we there? No. Is that what people think it will be? Maybe. But we're well on our way to the singularity, the transhumanist society, if technology and resources allow. And that's a big question. Will we be able to keep the political will and might for the mining of rare earth resources in Afghanistan throughout Africa for the next 50 years to help develop all of these technologies? That's the big problem, and that's the big push that we see. You have to you have to create the need to be in the regions to collect this these resources to build these kind of sensor networks. So, yeah, I read a great piece out of I think it was the Times this week, about the smart grid and how the smart grid is failing us and how temperamental the smart grid could be, and all these sensors that are monitoring every aspect of life that you know, for all the data hoarders or the hooverers, they love that, right? Oh, we need to know everything about everything. We'll record everything in human existence. Every bit of your life we'll put into some database, whether it's the food in your refrigerator. How fat are you, Porky? How many times a week do you eat pizza? And they would look at me and said, wow, Doug Owen, you ate pizza 3 times this week. What a fatty. We'll go ahead and have our smart fridge tell you about some other healthy choices that you might want to check out. Now, that sounds all well and good, I guess, right? If you're a crazy Malthusian. But it's just a lot of wasted information. It's a lot of wasted resources, and it's a lot of wasted time and energy to create something of very little value in my mind. So how much money and effort and how many wars and how many children have to die so that I can know that my baloney is about to go bad? You know, I mean, that's the more ridiculous aspect of it. All right, so plenty of technology in our lives, and the way it is changing us is just, amazing. Program lets scouts turn each other into zombies. You'll like this one. Participants at the Boy Scouts of America's National Jamboree are turning each other into virtual zombies as part of an education game that Virginia Tech, spooks, researchers designed to show how disease spreads. So this is the kind of fun stuff that your kids, if they go into scouts, and I will sidebar into the fact that you might have some overt gay activists in your scout troop now. Hopefully not. But just like everything, here's the thing. People are like, oh, they're ruining scouts. I don't know if I really ever... I was a Boy Scout. I went through the Webelos. I went through... I actually became a Boy Scout, which is above being a Cub Scout, but I never went, the Order of the Arrow or put in the work time and effort to really go the full distance. It wasn't that I didn't like scouting itself, just I was too much of a inside guy. I liked video games and I liked air conditioning, and the whole idea of sitting out in Texas sun, camping out more than a few times a year just was not all that appealing to me at that age, although now it is. But there's this political underbelly, and of course we know about the pedophile cults that prevail in places like that, where you have secrecy, where you have trust, and where you have maybe unreasonable trust. You're going to find people abusing that trust. You find it in the churches, you find it in the schools, and you'll find it here. But the thing I don't know, there was just this kind of creepy, sinister, underlying plan that you didn't really understand, and it seemed like there was a lot of that was kind of happening. And I mean, I can't put my finger on it, but it just seemed like there was just stuff that wasn't quite right with some of the people when we would go to these big jamborees and the like. So now they're using the Boy Scouts as a way to test medical technology, the virus spreading and the propagation of viruses. Get a load of this. The Virus Tracker program combines technology with the game of tag. Now, when we were in Boy Scouts, we played Prisoner of War. And after a while, they told us we couldn't do that because it offended people that had been affected or had family that were prisoners of war. We didn't know any better. That was the game we played. It was very similar to tag. At the Jamboree, scouts earn points by infecting other players through bar-coded labels. Codes can be activated at scanning stations or by troop leaders whose smartphones have the Virus Tracker app. The goal is to stay human. Individuals and troops that amass the most points each day win. And I like a good game of tag. I really do. And I was a big hide-and-go-seek fan. Oh, I mean, I couldn't get enough of it when I was a child. But this is just going into the creepy zone. It's not a joke. It's just kind of weird. It's very weird, and the fact that they want to use Boy Scouts as virus tracking children really does bother me. I try to say, well, okay, Doug, don't blow off half-cocked here. It's not that bad. They're just pretending that they're spreading viruses to each other, and the whole point is to infect them and turn other kids into zombies. But, yeah, that's what it is. That's what's happening. It's just one of the many more reasons why I don't think that if I had a young son, that I would want him to be part of the Scouts. And it's, and this goes beyond. See, people get upset about there's gay Scouts. Your Scoutmaster might be gay. That doesn't scare me, because we know before that rule change, Scouts were being molested by predators, by monsters that had made their way into the Boy Scouts. So that was happening before we knew about it. Same thing with the church. Okay, when the Catholic Church through the 70s and 80s, when these massive amounts of abuses were being pretty much normalized and habitualized in those catacombs, nobody said anything about it. There wasn't the internet. We didn't have all these firsthand experiences. So those things were going on in the background, and we were just ignorant of it. That's why people romanticize. Oh, remember when I was a kid, there was none of this. It wasn't that it wasn't there. Actually, it might have even been more prevalent, but you just didn't know because we didn't have the knowledge. Anyway, I can rail about the Boy Scouts and what they're doing and technology and how that's changing everything. And I really do find a lot of really cool things that are happening with technology, and I try to embrace it. And I'm a tech guy. I love technology, but the uses and the people that are using these ideas and devices are not so good. Anyway, let's see. My producer just shot me something. Photo planned ziggurat pyramid in Dubai. Oh, they're always building pyramids in Dubai. Let's see. My producer thinks this is worthy. Then, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Dubai is building another masterpiece structure shaped like a pyramid. The structure, called the ziggurat, will house nearly 1 million people and will be self-sustainable with all natural energy sources. Yeah, these are the carbon negative pyramids. So here, I'll throw this in the chat room for the mighty. I see that Joe has made his way to the chat room. What's up, Joe? Friday. It's on Joe Friday on a Saturday. All right, well, thank you very much there, Mrs. Producer. I like that. But see, this is a really old article. See, look at that. It's nothing new. Ugh. It's the problem, that highlights one of the big problems we have with the alternative media. People don't look at the dates. Like, hey, look at this. Yeah, that happened 10 years ago. It happened 5 years ago. And they never built it. And I'll tell you why Dubai didn't build those big 2.0 pyramids, and that's because they lost all of their money and funding because they blew up. Yeah, it is old, but it's still relevant. Yeah, it's this consolidation idea, putting people into these economic corridors and zones and getting them off of their land where they actually are somewhat sustainable and living in some totalitarian, esoteric pyramid where literally they suck energy off of the people. The pyramid eats the people's energy and uses that to thrive. The whole concept is pretty effing creepy. Yeah. All right, let's see. Yeah, U.S. repeals propaganda ban, spreads government-made news to Americans. I want to get into this because this is something that's not getting any attention in the mainstream media because they are using it for propaganda. Cryptagon had this piece via the Council on Foreign Relations, Foreign Policy, and Kevin says, "You'll love this. A source, quote-unquote source, explains that the reason for this is that Diaspora communities in America are thirsting for U.S. government propaganda, but they just can't access it. Okay, we'd love to hear all of the lies that our government is spreading in Saudi Arabia, but we're not getting it. Anyway, for decades, a so-called anti-propaganda law, prevented the U.S. government's mammoth broadcasting arm from delivering programming to American audiences, but on July 2nd, that came slightly to an end with the implementation of a new reform passed in January. The result, an unleashing of thousands of hours per week of government-funded radio and TV programs for domestic U.S. consumption in a reform initially criticized as a green light for U.S. domestic propaganda efforts. So what happened? We got the Voice of America. You've got just a bunch of these propaganda wings, these companies that are now getting into the blogosphere. General Dynamics, one of the big ones that are propagating and creating websites all of the time that put out anti and pro-U.S. news. And just because it's anti-West doesn't mean that it isn't a CIA operation. If you go to Press TV, you say, wow, this is Iranian press news, and this is for the Iranian people. Look at Press TV, their English version. This is good to go. I see people repost this stuff all the time. But quite honestly, most people that do that believe that there is a certain amount of legitimacy because the U.S. government isn't involved in it. Well, wouldn't you be surprised to know that Press TV, maybe even RTV, RT, and others might be foreign propaganda arms that are now being used for the domestic population? Now, I'm not saying that they are. But oh boy, do I have a list of people that I wonder about, and I'm sure you do as well. And if I'm on it, well, comrades, I am not part of the Russian arm, nor do we get paychecks from the Voice of America. If we did, we would do this more than on a weekly basis. We would have more support, I think, and we would probably be able to not worry about a lot of the little things that have happened, that happen on a daily basis that kind of stop the flow. We would have backups. We would have people that would continue to propagate in lieu of life that gets in the way of everything. So still many things ahead. I want to give a couple quick shout outs and thanks. Number one to probably our biggest and most vocal advocate of the show, and that is to Danimal. Many of you know him, and he gave us a $50 donation. So thank you, Daniel. That is going to be well spent. Have a lot of stuff that's going on in the expansion of these websites and the bandwidth that goes into operating this show. Let me put it this way: our newsletter, if you haven't received it, you should. We only send it out maybe 1 to 2 times per week, and it's always chock full of links. We don't just spam you with any sponsors or other products that you should buy. If people that do have businesses and that do have products want to advertise on this show, they can easily do that by underwriting it, by making a small donation. And we had one of those this week as well. Directive 21. They sell Berkey products. They sell a lot of products from Wise Food to the Berkey line of Berkey filters. And I have a Berkey. I can see it right now. Myself and my wife, honestly, swear to God, on my mother's eyeballs, we use this thing daily. So I don't think it's a bad thing to push water filters on people. And if you're not filtering your water, yeah, that's a choice. But it tastes better. It tastes better, and you can actually leave it in a cup overnight, and it doesn't turn into stagnant nastiness. So Directive 21 has been a longtime sponsor, and they donated 100 U.S. American dollars to the show. Also, Ron E. Bowman, a.k.a. Rocket Ron, sent us his latest about whistleblowers. I'm going to on SoundCloud, and I'll put this into the notes. And and I'm going to go to right about a minute here. There's an epic lead into this. Yeah, so pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool, yeah. So anyway, that is from Rocket Ron, and he sent that in to us today. I put it in the chat room, and we'll put it up on blacklistedradio.com in the notes for the show today. Just want to give a big shout out to the people out there that do support the show by sending us information, by sending us news and articles. We do take time to read almost every email, unless you're just a bombarder of spam, and then you go to the spam box. But we don't have many of those. We do have a lot of people that send stuff for us to bring attention to, or different creative things that they have made that we want to highlight on the show. So we do that this way. And I think that this is a better model, commercial free. I don't have to hear about the angst and the emotional stress that the commercials cause the people listening to the podcast. At the same time, we're not wasting a lot of time, focusing on that. But we do give proper credit to those that help support us. And I mean, quite honestly, those are all big benefits to the listeners. I think that if I find it to be interesting, then more than likely you guys will as well. And the fact that the mainstream media is not telling you that, you will be propagandized, and the CIA will be even, I think, more. There will be more propaganda is, it's telling. Why would they tell you that? Why would they tell you that they are nothing more than disseminators of BS and state talking points? Not that they were before, and I think that the only reason that they have passed this is to give them retroactive immunity. The media has been in lockstep with the state for many years. I mean, it's debatable where, if ever, there was the divergence between the two. They have been transversing for quite some time, so to me, it's just more of a reinforcement of what we already knew, and it gives them the legal backing to get out of any kind of lawsuits for wrongdoing, for propagandizing all of you with their BS. Okay, so we've got about 30 minutes left in the show. There's plenty of other things to get into. I do want to talk about this HAARP situation. HAARP is getting sequestered, and I know a lot of you out there are very upset about this because HAARP has brought us so many different conspiracy theories, so many different takes on the weather, the manipulation, the control thereof. And if you're not familiar with HAARP, it is the It's the Hemispheric Active Auroral Research Program, or is it high frequency or hemispheric? It's high frequency active auroral research program, and it's along with many other things that the government has used, from Operation Starfish. Google that, look that up, and that is where the U.S. government decided it was a good idea to blow up nuclear bombs in the air to see if we could disturb different layers of the ionosphere and global communications. with said bombs. The fallout and the fact that many scientists at the time thought that this would actually catch the ionosphere on fire and burn the world did not stop the U.S. government from doing it anyway. So HAARP has been, I think, ultimately the fall guy for just about every bad weather event that we've seen, every earthquake that seems that it's been timed to coincide with some other political agenda. And so it gets, rightfully or wrongfully, it gets thrown under the bus a lot for just about everything. We used to have a guy that called into the show years back named Mo in Oregon. I think he was a troll or just crazy, but you know, he would always say, "Mr. Owen, it's the HAARP is coming." And he was obviously not from this country, or he had just had a really funny accent, but you know, it's kind of one of those things that there's a lot of real science. I've talked to Dr. Nick Begich. I've talked to others that are heavily researched into these facilities, and HAARP is just one of many. There's 3 in the United States. Russia has an active auroral antenna array, and so do several other European countries. So HAARP is not unique to the United States. It's not the one and only, but if you listen to most people in the alternative media, it was. Well, long story short, HAARP's being shut down. There's about $10 to $25 million left in the DARPA budget, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, to wind this thing down over the next 6 months to a year. But the overall plan is to shut down and possibly sell HAARP to a private contractor, private researchers. It's old and aging, and I can't imagine that they wouldn't want to build one if it was so effective that they could control the weather with it. If they can do all the things that some of us give it credit for, why they would allow it to be sequestered. Well, this makes a lot of people upset. Don't you dare, Mr. Owen, ever discount the power of the HAARP. And I don't. But transitioning here from HAARP, the CIA does want to control the weather, and the real question becomes, have they been doing it in the past? The CIA is reportedly funding a study into how to control the weather, according to the Huffington Post. That's right, being able to learn to control the governments and foreign operatives of the rest of the world isn't quite enough. The CIA also wants to manipulate their climates. Well, of course, the CIA is actually doing the CIA actually is doing is funding part of a 630,000 21-month study into the science of modifying the climate, known as geoengineering. Langley is interested in both solar radiation management, SRM, and carbon dioxide removal, CDR, techniques. The former involves sending material into the atmosphere in an attempt to block infrared radiation and so to halt rising temperatures, possibly permanently. The latter is just what it sounds like, learning to remove massive amounts of carbon dioxide from the air in order to limit the effects of climate change. It goes on. The study will also discuss historical examples of related technologies, i.e. cloud seeding and other weather modification that your local weatherman is not going to tell you about. I mean, we've had just epic, unnatural amounts of rain here in Texas, and I thank you. I think I'm going to attribute most of it to my lovely bride over here, who continues to shake her rain stick. We have a rain stick here, and we shake it often. Speaking of which, you should probably shake that rain stick today. We need more of it. We're still very low in the area. Not to just sit here and shoot the crap about the weather, but that's what the CIA wants to do. And, you know, back in the Vietnam days, the flooding of the Ho Chi Minh Trail was something that was an object. There were top secret plans and things underway, like cloud seeding, some of these other technologies that were employed to control, manipulate, and to give the government the advantage in Vietnam. It didn't work, though. Flooding the Ho Chi Minh Trail didn't work. The people that were in remote viewing, the men that stare at goats, pretty crazy stuff, and you know, it highlights how wacky our government can be, and just about anything that can be used as a weapon, they'll try to weaponize it. You know, DARPA is a fine example of that. Hey, look, we figured out how a hummingbird flies. Turn it into a weapon. Hey, look, we figured out how worms create new brains and have parallel nervous systems. Turn it into a weapon. Figure out how we can make worm predators. It's kind of disenfranchising because you're like, wow, I mean, anything you tell the government, they're going to weaponize it. You could ask, Mr. Einstein about that. He thought that he could trust the government with nuclear fusion. Apparently not. Well, anyway, why would the government want to do this? Why would they want to be able to control and geoengineer the atmosphere? It's only because they love you, obviously. This is only to prevent global warming, people. If you buy that, you should you should turn this off right now and just start bashing your head against the wall. And if you do that, don't sue me, because that's really on you, not me. And I really don't mean that. It's tongue-in-cheek. So anyway, the study is intended to provide a careful, clear, scientific foundation that informs ethical, legal, and political discussion surrounding geoengineering. And that's what we haven't had. We haven't had a political discussion about geoengineering. You know, the science has been so politicized, regardless of what side of the aisle you are, when it comes to man-made global climate change. And I don't care where you're at on it. It's very simple to me. And that is that it's being politicized, just like anything else that's of importance in our lives. It's being politicized, and it's being used as a tactic to disempower and to extract taxes from you. It's also another great reason why they can't give you the services that they've promised with your tax dollars. So when I look at this, I see, first and foremost, scam. Big time. Now, you know, I'm not saying that they don't have the power to do this or the ability, but I really don't want to be one of these people that just gives the government the upper hand by pretending that they have technologies, or telling people that they have technologies and they are using those against them that they may not. I don't want to give them more power than they actually have. You know, the idea is that through the dissemination of propaganda, we all start wondering if the government, you know, is under our beds at night, and that just facilitates more and more people becoming scared and feeling powerless in their own lives. And I hear this. I've heard a lot of this when it comes to chemtrails. I had a lady call me a few years ago when I was doing the daily talk show, saying that she could no longer go outside and enjoy the rain. And I said, well, why is that? She's like, you know, the chemtrails are up there, and they're just poisoning us, and they're killing us. And I used to love going on walks in the rain, but now I can't do it anymore. And, you know, that really saddened me, because regardless of whether they were chemtrailing this lady's neighborhood, she really felt that fear. And so when something like rain, which, you know, I love because we get it so little of it. If you're in Portland, Oregon, you probably are not nearly as moved by the rain, but that something that she loved had turned into something that she feared, and yeah, that really hit me. Wow, I mean, something that you care about is now something that you immediately have negative connotations with, and so you know, I think that there's a balance in all of that. The government is always going to tell you that they can control the weather. Why wouldn't they? And they are honestly trying to do this. They have been trying to do this. The question is, how far have they gotten, and whether or not they're messing with your weather. But cloud seeding, all of these things all these technologies are very well known. They've been using them for years. They do it right here where I live, and you're not going to hear the weathermen talk about it. Well, why are we having rain? Could it be that we've been seeding clouds for the last month? I mean, if that doesn't play into it, then why are we doing it? And if it does play into it, then why isn't that being discussed? Why aren't we giving proper accolades to those technologies? Anyway, it goes on and on and on. But the point is that they're spending, and this is a pretty pretty nominal sum, $630,000 to figure out how to manipulate the weather. It's not that big of a deal. Speaking of minimal money, this whole idea that you can live on a McDonald's salary is it's disgusting. It's horrific. It is really sad. Now, McDonald's is one of these companies that doesn't have to give you insurance because they got the waiver. That's right. That's right. They're one of the biggest employers in this country, and they're not going to be giving their employers or employees any kind of affordable health care insurance anytime soon. And I've been trying to purchase insurance, and let me tell you, it's anything but affordable, and I don't feel any care. I don't feel like they give a crap about me or my wife or anybody in my family. So when I hear these buzzwords, affordable care, love, it really pisses me off. But anyway, they basically showed that if you were making $12.50 an hour at McDonald's, which you probably have to work there for 5 years to get into that pay grade, minimum wage is not what they look at, but they put this budget out for their workers. Remember Calvin? Remember Calvin on those commercials back in the day for McDonald's? Calvin's working at McDonald's. The whole hood is proud of him. He's got he's got a job. He got a jobby job. He doesn't have a car because he's living in a blighted urban area, but he's making it. He's making it, and he could do it. Well, McDonald's has the audacity. I mean, I can't even think of a word for what it is, but other than just lies and one more reason why I don't want to eat at their establishment. But they came up with this ridiculous budget. Michael Krieger, who's been on this show before, put out a little bit of a look at this. The ridiculously condescending budget put out by McDonald's in partnership with Visa. That's right, because they probably pay these guys on a Visa prepaid card that is just raking up tons of unnecessary fees. So, at the end of the day, what you get back after you've slaved over the McGriddle all day long is less than what it should be or what it would have been if you would have just got a check and paid your 1% to the check cashing guy at the local convenience store. Anyway, I allow excerpts from the Goth of the Mist on the article, and there's a corresponding video that does most of the explaining. But the key point I want to hammer into people is that food stamps are corporate welfare. They actually are not welfare for the workers themselves, who undoubtedly don't have wonderful lives. What ends up happening is that because the government comes in and supplements egregiously low wages with benefits like food stamps, the companies don't have to pay living wages. So, in fact, your tax money is being used to support corporate margins. Even better, many of these folks who get the food stamp benefits then turn around and spend them at the very companies which refuse to pay them decent wages. Who benefits? CEOs, shareholders. Who loses? Society. And I couldn't have said it better. When you hear about food stamps, when you hear about all of these different gimmies that the government gives people, they have to do this because the companies that they work for, and these are new jobs, these are the new manufacturing jobs by the rigged numbers, the new manufacturing jobs that are coming into the workforce are sandwich artists. They're McDonald's employees. They're people that are making less than $10 an hour. How can you do this? How can they continue to pay their people nothing? The reason they can do that is because the people themselves can subsidize their own incomes with your tax money, with your taxes and their taxes. Let's be honest about it. This is a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is a perfect circle of cronyism. Those people can basically live not very well, not very well at all. They're not saving any money, and they definitely aren't getting ahead. They're definitely not going to be putting people through college or any of the other things that you would hope that are supposedly part of the American dream. I mean, but it goes on. I mean, this is just one example of this huge system, this huge bureaucracy of corruption that has come out of this food stamp system. 1 in 6 people on food stamps. That is the numbers as of last week, if you believe government numbers. 1 in 6 of you out there listening to this podcast are being subsidized. And this is the thing. People are like, oh, well, you're attacking me for being subsidized. No, I'm attacking your crappy employer for screwing you. That's who I'm attacking. I'm attacking them for using this welfare system as a way to empower their selves and to keep people working for wages that are not living wages. And I'm not one of these people that sits there and bangs the drum for, you workers' rights, because I believe that you have rights even as a human being beyond being a worker. I believe that if you're somewhere where they want to oppress you and force you into these other gimme systems as a way to pay you, I believe you have the right and the duty to tell them to go F themselves. I would. It's easy to say because I'm a privileged white guy that just has everything thrown in my lap, according to the media this week. You're white, Doug. You're living high on the hog. You have a brand new car and you got a brand new home and everything's okay. The police love you. They don't take you to jail. Is that really what's happening? But people have that misconstrued conception because that's what the media continues to tell them. So, you should definitely look at this. It's a big reason why I never eat at McDonald's. If you eat at McDonald's, I don't begrudge you. I don't hate you for doing that. But there are so many other places you can get a better burger. Unless you live out in Nowheresville in the rural areas, and that might be the only place. But I would order beef. I would order grass-fed beef from the Bulletproof Executive, from Amazon, from anywhere I could for a nominal fee. Save the money. A $10 burger and fries with some high fructose corn syrup is not a deal. It's not a deal anywhere. Even if it's $5, it's not a deal. The nutritional value is so lacking that you might as well just eat a piece of cardboard. Probably more healthy, more nutrition in it. Some of the breakfast items might be a little bit better for you. A piece of sausage can only be so bad, but how much of it's actually sausage? How much sausage are you getting in that? I don't know. Probably not nearly as much as you should. But, people are caught off guard, and they continue to have all of these just non-issues thrown in their face. And I'm going to wrap up this show on a high note with Chris Matthews, a man that I cannot believe is still on air. I cannot believe people listen to. I cannot believe that I guess I can believe it. It really makes me sad that this guy is still on air. People do watch him, and I almost feel sad that I'm going to play this clip. But I think it's important. We should listen to this because this is the programming. This is the programming that people are getting, and this is what they want you to feel. You feel guilty for all the things that you have, and not nearly as upset about the things that are being taken from you.
We got to continue this conversation, gentlemen, privately and on television. I mean, a lot of people out there. I'll just tell you one thing, and I'm speaking now for all white people, but especially people who have tried to change the last 50 or 60 years. And a lot of them have really tried to change. And I'm sorry for this stuff. That's all I'm saying.
Thanks, Chris Matthews, for apologizing for all white people to these black comrades here. He's speaking on, or two here on MSNBC. I think that's they couldn't even buy ratings this. If you go to Drudge, they always have the network ratings, and the ratings because of the Trayvon Martin trial, the ratings because of all of the bull crap that's happening in the mainstream media. Because of all of that, they have been able to get just huge TV ratings. And MSNBC, not so much. And I guess they should get a clue because this guy, along with Rachel Maddow, they're just Obama bots. They are completely compromised, and there's just nothing wrong that Obama can do. And they try their best to make me feel guilty. And I don't get it. Why should I feel guilty? Okay, I'm not getting white privilege. Or they've been talking about all week long the white guilt. So if you feel guilty because you're white, you should not, because guess what? Throughout history, everybody's been oppressed, everybody's been a slave, everybody has enslaved other groups, including blacks, including Irish, including the Chinese, including the Chinese Americans, including the Panamanians, South Americans, all the way back to the Aztecs, beyond that to the pyramids, although they're saying that they paid them a fair living wage. Did you see that? It wasn't slavery. We have no idea about anything that was going on in ancient Egypt, but we're pretty sure that they paid him a fair wage. Come on. These people weren't working at McDonald's. They didn't have food stamps. And I think that in the next few years they will try to pull it or push it to the next level and tell us the people building the the pyramids were they're being paid fair wage and everybody worked collectively together to make sure that they were doing all right. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff that we didn't get into. We talked about the propaganda. We talked about, most of the important things that I had on my list here. Let's see. Did we miss anything? Trayvon rants, teleprompters. Oh, of course, and the...
Something Wong.
No, we didn't get into that, but there's no point. There's been plenty of talk of the flight crash and those guys that actually put forward the talking points for this lady who should get a bonus for being a great teleprompter reader. I mean, she could literally be our president of the United States reading the teleprompter like this after the flight crash. All of those guys that did this, and I guess there was a few interns that weren't getting paid crap, ended up doing this, and they were fired, which makes me laugh because how can you fire somebody when you're not paying them? Well, I guess that's the world in 2.0 America. By the way, I did want to mention that myself and Charlie McGrath did our very first inaugural Doomcast. The response has been, I think, for the most part, pretty good. Although there's a lot of people that have commented on Charlie's page about the Doomcast, and we saw lots of yawns and lots of other people that are just offended by the show itself, not being nearly scary enough, not talking nearly enough about the impending doom and death that is upon us. Although, that genre is somewhat macabre, and I think that if you listen to most of Charlie's shows that he does with Wide Awake News, they are somewhat more grim than mine, though we look at the same news. I talk about the same topics, and I just look at them from a little bit different perspective. I try to give it the full spectrum and really open up the discussions rather than just wrapping it up into a ball and throwing it at the listener. So, check it out. It's on YouTube. It's on Charlie's channel. If you go to doomcast.com, you can listen to the show, and depending on the response, just like this podcast, we'll do more. We will definitely do more, but there has to be the demand. I will provide the supply. We can supply as many shows as we really want to, up to a certain point, but it requires that we have the support. So I want to thank those that supported us this week, first and foremost, and to all of you that download the show and tell friends and family about it. Please do. Keep them in the loop. And, well, that's it. I will be back next Saturday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time for another live edition of Blacklisted Radio. You can follow us on Twitter at BLN Radio, at Blacklisted News. Those are our two handles. And, of course, at BlacklistedRadio.com. Until next week, have a great, great weekend, what's left of it, and take care.